Daniel Sports Central, we go over our 2022 college football predictions for the North Carolina Tar Heels, team that went 6-7 overall in the 2021 season. Kind of a disappointing season for North Carolina, considering this team was expected to be a potential national contender going into last season. But how this team be in 2022, that's what we'll be going over here today. We'll be analyzing this team and predicting their schedule game by game in this video, starting out with your team trends. North Carolina 6-7 last season. They were 3-3 in their first 6 games, 3-4 in the last 7. And once again, I mean, this team, whether you're a North Carolina fan or not, I think we all can agree that North Carolina was expected to be much better last season. Coming off of an 8-4 2020 season, this team was good in 2020. They had improved greatly from 2018 to 2019, and with Sam Howell coming back, the amount of talent coming back, it looked like North Carolina was going to be a potential, dark horse national contender going into 2021. They were a big named team to potentially win the ACC, which once again ended up not happening. This team got up to only 6 wins last year, and it started off in that Virginia Tech game. I think North Carolina was ranked in the top 10. I might be wrong. They were somewhere around number 10, I think, in that week 1 matchup against Virginia Tech on the road. Turns out they lost to the Hokies by 7, only scored 10 points in that matchup, and you could kind of tell, they just did not look good in that week 1 matchup. And down the road, they'd have a couple of good offensive performances. They beat Miami 45-42, beat Wake Forest 58-55. But in the end, once again, 6 wins is all this team got last season, which I feel like this team very much underachieved last season. They were one of, I'd say, 3 teams I really thought should have been better last season. And, if you look at that Pitt game, they did take a couple of really close losses. Lost to Pitt on the road by a touchdown, lost to NC State. Pretty good team there by 4. So, those are a couple of close losses there. And they also lost to South Carolina in their bowl game, 21-38. Definitely a tough loss to finish out the season there. And once again, just an underwhelming season for North Carolina. And things are going to look a lot different going into 2022 now. Of course, you got Sam Howell, who's now gone, and he's been the key player for this team over the past couple of seasons. And we know, we knew after his first season back in 2019, he looked excellent in 2019 to say the least. And we only thought, North Carolina, this team really showed a lot of potential with having him as the quarterback, and unfortunately he is gone now. So, good luck to him in the NFL, but this team has got a very questionable quarterback situation now with Jacoby Criswell and Drake May being the top 2 quarterbacks going to next season. Looks like Criswell is the favorite as of late June to get that starting position, but we'll see what happens there. There's a very good chance that we see them split some time and start some games in this season. We'll see who stands out more. But running back situation, you lose Ty Chandler, your top from last season, so that's going to be a tough loss. Last season, he put up 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, so Chandler definitely had a big impact on this offense. But you do have British Brooks coming back, your second in the backfield from last season, who put up just nearly 300 yards and 4 touchdowns last season. And don't forget Sam Howell. He was a good passer. He had some very good performances in passing. He really didn't turn over the ball too much when he played for the Tar Heels, but he also was a really good rusher. He put up nearly 900 yards of rushing last season and 11 rushing touchdowns for this team last year. And if you look at his passing stats, 3,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 picks, 63% in completion. He still had a good season. It wasn't quite as good as his 2019 or 2020 seasons, I'd say, but overall it still wasn't bad. Like if you look at his 2019 and 2020 seasons, his touchdown interception ratio in 19 was 38-7, and in 20 it was 30-7, so it was slightly worse in the 2021 season, but still, there's reason why this team was expected to be so good last season. And it's because of Chandler, it's because of Sam Howell, it's because of the receiving core was also looking pretty good. I thought, the depth I thought was pretty good. Turns out, Josh Downs was the top receiver, and he's coming back, so you do have him coming back for next season. That's a huge return, 1,300 yards last season and 8 touchdowns. Antoine Green is also coming back. So the receiving core was kind of young last season, but you got some good depth there again going into 2022. You lose 3 on the offensive line, 1 defensive lineman, 1 linebacker, and 1 in the secondary as well. So defensively, you do lose 3 of your starters, but defensively, I'm not concerned at all. I think defensively, this team is actually going to improve going into next season, which is definitely going to be needed. The defensive side was an issue at sometimes last season. And offensively, it is a bit questionable there with their quarterback situation. I feel like Criswell, whoever starts, should definitely, I feel like, I mean, they've got their work cut out for them, but I feel like I'm not terribly concerned about the situation there. But obviously replacing Sam Howell, a quarterback who's played in general very well for the Tar Heels over the past 3 seasons, will be, I do think, an adjustment, or a challenging adjustment at first for this team. So brings to the question, how high is the ceiling for this team going into 2022 now with a few of these big changes? I feel like this team, and once again, if there's going to be a season that this team made the college football playoff, I mean, I really thought North Carolina, and once again, I'm not the only one. There were a lot of people who thought North Carolina, and rightfully so, was going to be a dark horse national contender, and they just underperformed and underachieved, which it's definitely confusing in a way, seeing how this team fared out. But I'm going into 2022 now, a fresh start. How will this team do? I mean, it's very questionable right now, but I feel like this team is at least in the ballpark to maybe cause some noise in the ACC and maybe get to a bowl game. I feel like if you win a bowl game and at least can get to one in the 2022 season, that is a step in the right direction for this team. But looking at your transfer portal and recruiting now, going into next season, Cameron Roseman, a safety, is in the transfer portal from North Carolina. You got Spencer Rolland, defensive tackle, coming in from Harvard. You lose wide receiver Emery Simmons. Asante, linebacker, is off to Auburn. Gaynor, offensive lineman, is coming in from Miami. Linebacker Noah Taylor coming in from Virginia. And you lose Trey Morrison and Tyrone Hopper to different schools. Otherwise, you got Cavazos, a defensive back, coming in from Ohio State, as well as Jacoby Cowens. You got a couple of Ohio State guys coming in. You lose Edmonds, running back, to East Carolina. Travion Stevenson, Stephen Gasnell, Bo Corrales, Christian Varner, and Josh Henderson as well. So you lose several players to the transfer portal. There's a couple impact players, but I mean, otherwise, it doesn't look terribly bad. But recruiting wise, looks really good for North Carolina. They're 11th in the nation. You got you're second in the ACC. You got 2 5-stars coming in, and then 8 4-stars. So I'd say, I mean, recruiting wise, this team looks excellent going into next season. That is definitely, I feel like, a huge advantage for this team. Is the recruiting is looking excellent going into next season. So the future looks bright for North Carolina, even though this team, you rebuild and you add some depth there, and potentially this team is a contender next season. But looking at your schedule now going into 2022, you got Florida A&M in week 0 there. So you play in week 0. And then, of course, you got App State in week 1 on the road. You got Georgia State on the road after that. So 2 of your first 3 there, 2 of your non-conference games are on the road. Then you've got Notre Dame coming to town on the 24th. You got Virginia Tech at home, Miami on the road, Duke on the road. And then your bye week, you got 2 bye weeks this year, of course, since you're playing in week 0 there. And then, of course, you're off to Virginia. You play Wake Forest on the road, Georgia Tech at home, and then NC State. You got that game at home to finish out your regular season. So looking at your first month of action here, Florida A&M, easy win. App State on the road. I'm going to put App State in yellow, meaning I think it's going to be a closer one, but I do want to favor North Carolina there definitely, and then Georgia State. I'll favor North Carolina there for sure. So I'm pretty confident you start the season 3-0, even though one of those non-conference games being on the road potentially could trip you up. I do think if any one of those 2 games would be the one for North Carolina to take a loss, it would be against App State, because App State, they're a sneaky team. They're dangerous going up against Power 5 opponents sometimes. So I feel like that's a game that you don't want to sleep on. You definitely want to go into that one ready to go, because App State could be a potential upset bid there. But then you got Notre Dame at home on the 24th. Tough one there. You got them at home, but I feel like Notre Dame does pull that one out in the end there. So you're 3-1 heading into October. Virginia Tech at home. That's going to be a close one, but I do think you beat the Hokies, which would be a good win there. Miami on the road on the 8th. I do think the Hurricanes win that matchup, with them being at home in that matchup. Plus, I do think Miami's going to be decent next season. I do like Van Dyke. I think Miami's a team that definitely could cause some noise in the ACC. Potentially, they could win that division, that Coastal Division next season. So we'll see what happens there. Then you got Duke on the road, close one. I do think I do want to favor North Carolina there for sure, but with them being on the road after a loss, I will put that game in yellow. Then Pitt, after your bye week, you beat Pitt, which would be another good win, considering I do think Pittsburgh could be towards the top of that Coastal Division as well. Speaking of that Coastal Division, next season, I mean, there are two divisions in college football that I think are, just wide open going to next season, and those are the Big Ten West and the ACC Coastal. I mean, the ACC Coastal's got 5 teams that could very easily win the division this season, and even the ACC Atlantic isn't set in stone. I feel like, in the Coastal, though, if you look at, Virginia, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Miami, Pitt, all 5 of those teams are very much able to win that division. And honestly, I feel like the winner of that division is probably going to be a 9-win team next season. I don't really think there's a big standout in that division, but I do think it's going to be very competitive to see who wins it. But yeah, Pitt, you do win that matchup. So you're 6-2, and I'd say in pretty good shape heading into November there. Once again, as I said, I feel like 9 wins can definitely win the Coastal Division. I've got North Carolina at 8 wins. I do have you losing to Virginia on the road, losing to Wake Forest after that, so you take 2 straight losses, and then you beat Georgia Tech pretty easily, and then NC State, close one, but you beat NC State, which would be a huge win. I think NC State is potentially a 10-win team next season, so that'd be a great win to finish out your season there. So I've got you at 8-4. I'm pretty confident North Carolina is a 7 to 9 win team next season. I don't think they've got the potential to be a national contender like the talk that was there going into last season, but I do think this team could cause some noise and potentially could win the division. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on North Carolina, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.